Hi everyone, Matt Young from 9 to 5 here with the lovely John Edward. Thank you for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
So you're a regular visitor to our shores.
I am.
How's it going so far this time around?
It's going well. A little cooler than I expected, but still beautiful nonetheless.
So the Sydney show in October, what can audiences expect?
Well, for people who are fans of Crossing Over, who enjoyed watching the show, it's pretty much Crossing Over live without the commercial breaks. You know, I come out and address the audience, talk a little bit about what to expect. I'm going to start reading them, interject a couple stories, anecdotes, whatever I'm like feeling that the audience itself needs to hear, and then I open the floor up to their questions, and then I do as many readings as I possibly can.
What are the chances of someone being read?
That's a really good question. One that I don't know if I can actually answer in the sense of what your chances are. I think it's kind of like if you're there, that's your chance. That's pretty much, and if you're not there, you're not going to be read. If you are there, you're increasing the opportunity of being read. And somebody else asked me another question. Back in the States, they go, well, if I come with more of my family, does that increase my odds of like pulling the person in? And I went, no. If you're supposed to get read, you're going to get read, whether you have one person there or 20.
Does it depend on how strong the spirit is or how deep their connection is or anything like that?
It does depend upon the energy who's passed and their desire to come through. And I kind of hesitate a little bit saying that because I don't want to minimize someone's relationship in some way. I say it's based on the necessity of what the people there need to hear. So for example, I love when somebody says after an event, I would have loved to have heard from my grandfather, but when that man heard from his son, I knew he needed to hear that differently, more so than I did. And it's not to minimize somebody else's loss, but usually after an event, people can look at things through that kind of lens and go, yeah, I would have liked it, but I totally get why that needed to happen.
Is it always an emotional experience for these people?
No, it's not always an emotional experience. Sometimes it's a head-to-head experience with me because they don't want to hear from the person that's coming through, or it's not who they would expect to hear from. And sometimes I have to kind of navigate that a little bit to get them to pay attention to the message, because I know that sometimes standing behind the person they're not expecting to hear from is the person that they want to hear from.
Spirituality versus religion. Is there a difference?
Huge difference. Huge difference.
How so?
Well, it used to be that, and I say used to be, religion was the place that people went for a sense of community. And now, people aren't going to church and temple in the same way. I mean, it's just a proven fact, numbers-wise, statistically, the membership is down.
Yeah.
And the reason why membership is down is that old structural methods and modalities of giving information and controlling people, I think, is what's turning people off. And they're finding a sense of community in various different ways, a la social networking, and self-empowerment has become much more of a theme. And spirituality is something that people are kind of experiencing as a result of taking their having a belief system and getting rid of some of the dogmatic beliefs and adopting more of a universal understanding. They're trying to find their way, and I think it's developing more of a spiritual side that people have over the last at least 10 to 15 years come. And I think technology has a lot to do with it. I really think technology and the dissemination of information.
I read that you have Catholic roots.
I do.
And you still practice it in a sense?
I'm recovering. That's how I kind of explain it. I look at religion as being like a language. I speak English because I'm raised in the States. I speak Catholicism because I was raised in a family that was Catholic. I am not an ardent Catholic. I don't go to church every Sunday. I don't feel the need. We're very rebellious in certain ways. I don't feel the need to go sit in front of a priest and confess my sins to a person who's probably doing something worse than I have. So it's like there's certain things that I don't kind of resonate with. However, I do think it's really important to have a foundation in some type of language. So my children are being raised Catholic. And they can choose as they get older to either embrace it fully or not. But I do want to inspire them so they have a language. Because most importantly, I think we need to plug into that source. And I think the way there's multiple languages on the planet, there's no best language. Some languages are spoken more than others by sheer volume and numbers. I don't think there's any best language when it comes to religion. I'm an encourager of speaking the language or exploring languages to bolster your own sense of spirituality, to feel connected into that source.
If I for example, I have a lot of deja vu, and I'm like, okay, this has definitely happened before. Does that mean in those instances that you may have some sort of psychic ability?
I'll tell you what I think. So somebody also, it's weird that you brought that up. Somebody else asked me, nobody ever asked me about deja vu. Like today is like, that must be in my energy.
It's deja vu day.
Yeah, oh, deja vu. But a lot of people think, oh my God, deja vu, this happened in a past life. And I'm like, yeah, kind of no. Because it was a past life, it wasn't this one, so it couldn't happen already. So let's just take that off the table. A scientist that I spoke to once said that they felt that deja vu is where your brain kind of snapshots the experience and takes in all the stimulus, and then your consciousness catches up to it, which makes you feel like that was happening. And that's okay for me until you get to one place. Sometimes your deja vu, you know what's happening right next. So it's like you get that feeling of, wait a minute, this has happened before, and now this is going to happen, and then it does. So your brain can't take that snapshot and catch up to it when it hasn't happened yet for it to take the snapshot to catch up to. And that's where I think this comes in. Precognition in a dream state. Sometimes we'll dream of situations, and in the middle of all this crazy chaos in our sleep, there'll be this little moment, and that moment is a piece of your future. And then what happens is when you actually experience it, that's why you feel like you've done it before.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you're watching the news, or you're watching a movie, let's say a movie, and you're paying attention to the movie and the storyline and the whole thing, but the backdrop of it is a place. You're seeing it, you're getting images, you're experiencing it, and then like 6 months later, you're in that place, and you're like, I've never been here before, why do I feel like I have been? Because you've had that experience at a sensory level where you were there, but you weren't there physically, but conscious-wise you were there. So in the dream state, it's kind of like being in that movie before you're actually there.
So what do you see? Can you, everywhere you go, do you feel energy, or have you mastered blocking it out?
I pretty much feel energy, period. So I use eyeglasses as an example. When I was in high school, I recognized the fact that I couldn't see at long distances. And I kept asking the kid that was next to me in my locker who that was. And when I finally realized that he actually could see it and I couldn't, I asked him, I go, am I supposed to be able to see that? And he looked at me and went, yes. So then I made an appointment with an eye doctor. And I will never forget the first time I put my glasses on. The clarity that everything had. I remember like looking at things going, oh my God, like everything was crisp. I look at life differently after 26 years of doing this work. I look at life in a metaphysical way. When someone tells me that they're sick, or there's an area that they're sick, I don't just go, oh, they've got a sore throat. It translates to me, oh, they're not communicating. Because I know that the physical body is tied into our spiritual energy centers, which are called our chakras, and they have meanings. So if someone's got a block in a certain area, it's going to manifest in the physicality in their body. So it tells you something. Some people think I'm crazy. Then I go, okay, if you think it sounds crazy coming from the psychic, go talk to your homeopathic, holistic doctor or acupuncturist and see what they tell you, and then talk about energy and meridians in your body and how the energy flows. So everything is so interconnected energy-wise. So that's just one aspect of how I'll look at things. But then I look at, if I'm going to be flying on a plane, if you ever see me staring at you at an airport, it's for no other reason. If you're on my flight, I want to make sure that you have an aura. Because I know that before any living energy is going to be crossing over, its energy is going to kind of diminish. Even if it's going to be an accident, there's going to be a shift in their energy. So
So you can tell when someone is about to die.
I can. I absolutely can.
Have you ever warned anyone?
Well, I learned that I can do that because I used to work in a hospital. I was a phlebotomist in a hospital.
Yeah.
And I recognized that when I went into patients' rooms, I would be able to sense, even in scenarios when the people were not that sick, when something was kind of not right. I used to get two feelings. I used to feel people around the foot of around the head of the bed, kind of like an upside down U.
Right.
I would feel people standing in places that you clearly could not stand in a hospital when the bed's up against the wall. But I would feel this energy all around them. And I started noticing that whenever I got that feeling around someone, within a day or two they would leave, they would transition or cross over. And then there was, I started paying attention to that, and then I would recognize the differences in the person's energy. That's why when somebody says, oh, they look gray or their color's off, sometimes I'm not just responding to the physical look, it's the energetic look of how when someone is not feeling well.
So have you ever passed someone on the street and said, oh, you're not well, or something's happened and you need to go and see somebody?
I have, but not in such a dramatic, overt way. There's a certain level of communication you have to be very, very careful about. So if you're talking about when I first started in my teenage years, yeah, I had a couple of moments like that, which were very accurate and some very uncomfortable as a result, clearly. Now I've learned how to deliver the information in a way where I can have a much more impactful message without freaking the crap out of the person, where I can give them
You're about to die.
Yeah, where I can give them a heart attack on the spot. Like
Yeah.
now, before I was known as John Edward, I could be running around jumping up and down saying like, something was going to happen, and people look at me like, oh, that's so nice. Okay, you believe that? Okay, sure. Now, if I was to say that to certain people, they would like have a heart attack.
Do you still say it to people?
I've learned how to deliver the message in a way that it can be heard, so that they pay attention to it. And I'm all about empowerment. I want to empower them to make the decision. Whether or not they do anything about it, that's now up to them. I've done my job. I passed it on. But I think there's a certain level of responsibility that if you see something as this person doing this type of work, you should say it. I don't hold anything back.
Do they have a choice, or is their path already determined?
I'm a big believer that we have choice. I don't believe everything is charted out for us. That's way too Calvinistic in thought for me. I think that there are certain things in life that are going to take place that could be fate or destiny, and those moments kind of teach us a very valuable lesson. But how we get from point A to point B, that's up to us. That's our free will in between.